G'day everyone, Greg here from Fishblade Films and welcome back to the Workbench. And today, yes, we are reviewing and testing the Athearn ready-to-run SD39-2 with Soundtraxx Econami sound. Now, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, Greg, you're always going on about reliability and smooth operation rather than looks and all that sort of thing. What the hell are you doing buying a ready-to-run model? Well, a few things. Their detail is very good, as we'll find out, and I watched a lot of reviews and saw a lot of photos. And also, if you don't know, that you can change out the old motor, the original, I'm not going to call it a blue box motor, it's the same as the old blue box motor, but it's not the same. It has certainly been reworked. And they're very easy to change out with a Kato motor. If you buy a Kato motor with the old mount, the old mounting system, they virtually go straight in. Also, there's guys on the internet now 3D printing the motor mounts. If you have a Kato motor, one of these, he is printing out 3D mounts that you can just put this straight into Athearn, ready to run, not blue box models. Very different. I have some old blue box models, 40 years old, and they are certainly not like this. So my idea was to buy this, and having the Econami decoder, which is basically a Tsunami 2 without the dynamic digital exhaust or the full throttle function, and it's without a few other things, but it has the same wonderful hyperdrive that's equal to ESU now, absolutely, and it has the 7-band graphic equalizer, which is really good for tuning your speakers to get the better sound out of them. So if you can find the right prime mover, the Econami has a few less prime mover options, but if you can find the prime mover options that you want, the Econami is a great choice, especially if you don't want the DDE function. So let's get into this and we will see why I am very surprised about this model. Let's have a look. Right, first of all, we'll have a look at the front, and we have a etched metal wipers there, and another aerial up the top, and wire grab irons, and a really nice sand filler hatch actually. It's quite a little touch. Of course, LED ditch lights there. They're separately switched on to the headlight, and these lovely rubberized MU hoses with silver glad hands on the end. It's a really nice touch. And the KDs, the couplers are mounted really close to the body, which is really good, but we'll talk about that a bit later. LED headlights, of course. Now on the conductor side, we have some etched metal windows there. The other model I have is silver, but these are red, so that's a bit different. Our Sinclair antenna, of course, great little strobe, just the right brightness I feel anyway. And some more wire grab irons there. The number boards aren't lit. The truck's in IC detail as well. No sanding lines, but there is a speedo cable there and some very nice fine printing. And all the brake details there. The E-bell is a really nice touch too. And you can see some little details on the fuel tank there. Now the model comes with a plastic bag full of detail parts of the fuel tank, and you can add on heaps, and it really makes the model stand out. It's a really nice touch. You can see the extra breather pipes in at that end, and the overflow pipes, I guess. Also, what Athearn have done is model the inboard traction motors that make the trucks spread further. That's why the SD40-2s have these verandas, because the trucks had to sit out further from the fuel tanks. Here's a picture of the fuel tank with all the added details, and it really makes the fuel tank pop. It's a great touch that Athearn have done. So here's the rear of the locomotive. We've got more wire grab irons there, and some welded up classification lights, I think you call them. More LED headlights, LED ditch lights too, also just the right brightness. And some more fantastic, I really like these rubber MU hoses with the silver tips, the glad hands on the end. And look at this, spare knuckles. Hard to believe this is a ready-to-roll unit. And of course, the handrails are not brittle, they're quite strong. Now, Athearn have always had really good fan details, and this model is no exception. Really nice fan details on the top. I think the air horn is brass. It's incredibly strong. And there's our strobe, some more antennas on the top, and our air conditioning. Now, with the body shell off, we can see the wiring for the LEDs. Now, you may think this is a little bit amateurish, but I think it's a much better idea than having expensive printed circuit boards for headlights that if something goes wrong, you have to buy an expensive circuit board. This way you just buy a couple of SMD LEDs and repair it yourself. Maybe a little bit more messy, but I think it's much more serviceable. Now, speaking of serviceable, here is the board. The first thing I do is resolder all the wires and get rid of those little rubber clips or plastic clips, and makes more for a more reliable joint. So this is a Tsunami Econami decoder. Now, here is the elephant in the room, this old motor. It's very strong, and look at that great big armature there with great big brushes. It's not going to wear out, and it runs incredibly well. The other big surprise was this dual sugar cube speaker. This thing is ridiculously loud. I'm running it at about 50 out of 255. Nice big wires there as well. Athearn have really thought about this engine. Nice, yeah, thick wires for the pickups, and also decent size for the speaker as well. You can see it's screwed down, and really well made. Now underneath the speaker we've got our Genesis drive line there, and if you notice the pickup wires from the trucks, there has some heat shrink around them. This model has really been well made. Little touches like this that just set it apart, in my opinion, and make it very serviceable. Now for me, it's underneath the loco that has the most interesting aspects to it. Most trucks on most brands have a brass strip that runs along the side of the truck here, and your axles go into that. And Kato's are like it, Atlas, Athearn, Genesis. And this system on the RTR models goes way back to over 40 years old, when Athearn made their old blue box. And instead of having the bearings on the outside along here in a little flimsy pressed piece of brass that's supported by the side of the truck, this model has brass bearings, big thick brass bearings here that support the axles, and they're called inboard bearings because the bearing is actually underneath the weight of the truck. It's not out here for all the weight to actually have to work its way out and be supported by the side of the truck. It's supported almost right in the center, and there's a metal frame that goes along here, and that metal frame makes up part of the truck. So these trucks are incredibly strong and very resilient, and also what it gives you is it gives you some suspension in the wheels. So you can see the wheel sets move a little bit there. And what this does is allows the trucks to move over uneven surface like a real one, where the other trucks, most of the other trucks and most of the other models are rigid. And that puts extra strain on the trucks when axles are lifting off the ground, and because none of our track is dead straight, of course. And you might think, well, that's not so much of a big deal, but it is a bit of a big deal. And just the way this thing runs, I'm sure it has something to do with the way that the wheels here can freely move up and down, and very rarely would you have on a layout all three wheels on contact with the track at the same time in a fixed truck with no movement, because your track is never dead level. Where this suspension system here allows the wheels to move up and down, side to side, and follow the track just like a real one. And the other beauty of it is that you've got big fat bearings here. You can pop a little bit of oil in, and these will they're supporting the weight straight down from the locomotive. The weight doesn't have to be transferred out to the side to the flimsy plastic side of the trucks. This is a great idea, and I really applaud Athearn for keeping this. They've probably just done it because they've done it for years, but it's something that works, and it's one of those hidden things that you don't know that makes a difference, but it makes a huge difference. And I wish their Genesis locomotives had this truck, because it's indestructible, and it just rides. Just watching this thing ride over turnouts on my layout, it just sits better than unequalized trucks or that's not sprung, but trucks that are rigid. This allows wheel sets to move, and the loco just seems to run a lot smoother. So for me, this is the biggest plus, apart from the details and the shock of how well it runs. This is the biggest selling point for me, having these lovely trucks and this axle sets that move. And these brass bearings here make contact with this metal strip on each side, and there's wires onto that go up to the decoder. Now you may think, oh, if that's moving, this brass might not be in contact with the actual bit of metal. But with the wheels are rotating, they're always going to be pushing or trying to turn this bit of brass, and it's going to be hitting somewhere on this metal plate. And of course the wheel is going to be dropping down onto the track, so you're far better off having a wheel that's in contact with the track and having some contact here, rather than having a rigid truck where the wheels will be lifted off the track more often than you would think. So for me, this is a great thing, and I wish Athearn would put this on all of their models. Now, straight out of the box, this thing ran as good as a Kato, no problem at all. I've actually had to speed up speed step 1 to match my older Tsunamis, and that's on speed step 1 now. I've reduced the back EMF a fraction, and apart from that, not too many settings at all. It's incredibly smooth, so I'm very surprised. Now the lighting outputs headlight function 0, and ditch lights function 5, and function 6 is your strobe there. And of course you've got the dimmer as well, just your normal Tsunami features. I probably will do a video on the Econami and Tsunami 2 decoders coming up. They're definitely very good. Step forward in motor control since the first Tsunamis, although you can get a Tsunami 1 to run pretty much as good as an ESU, but these new Soundtraxx Econami, how do you say that? And Tsunami 2s are just as good, and I personally prefer running them over ESU. That's just my personal opinion. I've always said Soundtraxx decoders are more of a user decoder. They're for someone who likes to fiddle with things and have their own settings. They're more friendly in that regard. Well, there you have it. Oh, and here is the pile of air tank pipes that you get, and there's a few different versions there for different roads. Obviously you have different overflow pipes and vents and all that sort of thing. There is a stack of stuff here, so you could detail easy another 1 or 2 locomotives with these parts. So I'm thinking of doing my Kato SD40-2s and putting a few vents on them just to trick them up a little bit, because it does make a big difference. So there you go. Well, very impressed. As you see, it runs wonderfully well, and the motor's bulletproof, the trucks are bulletproof. So I've had this particular model now for 3 weeks, and I have 1803. I've had that for about a month, and I have another one on the way. That's how much I like them, and I don't think I'll be changing the motors out very soon, to be quite honest. And okay, so what don't they have? Well, they don't have walkway treads along here. So you know, someone in the future, I'm sure, will be 3D printing or photo etching walkway treads that you can just stick on there, and that would be fine. But really, it's not such a big deal. But for the people who want it, maybe. What else doesn't it have? It doesn't have a cab interior, as we've discussed. That's easily fixed if you want to do that. And of course, sticking the wires up like I did gets them out of the cab, and you just look straight through it. It doesn't have lit number board lights, but there is an option to do that. I'm looking into that, and there is a cavity in there that you could possibly drill a little hole in and stick an LED in, or a light tube or something like that. So really, that's about it. And the pros far outweigh the cons, in my opinion. And I'm very surprised. and very impressed. So yeah, a nice addition to the fleet. And I'll keep you posted. You'll see them running around and switching on the Birdwood sub, and we'll see how they go. But for so far, they've done a few laps of the layout, and it's been rather hot. It's getting hot here, and I am having failures with Kato motors more and more regularly now. I don't know if anyone else is having them, but they are delaminating. The windings are delaminating and starting to draw high current and trip decoders and stuff, and smell them coming out of the exhaust. So I think Kato's getting a bit slack. Maybe they're choosing thinner wire or something in their motors. I don't know. Maybe they don't like the heat. But anyway, I've had to replace a few Kato motors over the last year, and interesting. As I say, the windings and the brushes on these old motors, older style motors, are huge, and I think they'll just go forever. So interesting times ahead. Anyway, highly recommended. Fishplate films, highly recommended. And as I say, they run beautifully, great detail. The LED lighting is perfect. Athearn, you've done a great job. The couplers set back into the body so they're more realistic. Some people might find them a pain for their trip pins hitting the plough. Well, readjust your trip pins. Athearn have really looked into the prototype modelling ideas for this engine, and a few little things like that make all the difference. The devil's in the detail, as they say. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and look forward to it running around, switching with its two sisters on the Birdwood sub very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.